So Carrie was great, and there's always that nagging. It feels 50-50 until it's sealed. Until it's sealed. But her mother was with us all the time. I had one lunch with her without Lynn as her mother during the whole wait. And we met in late January, and Scotty was born in mid-May. So it was a while. That's a long time. Normally, if you meet the birth mother, you don't meet her that early in the pregnancy. So ours is way over here. They usually fall somewhere in the middle. And open adoption, I have a friend who's actually met with the second time with the birth mother yesterday, and her husband is a little panicked because the birth mother has said, I'd really like 4 visits per year. I just realized I have to have I thought it was a hair thing or something. It's pretty. Anyway, her husband's like, I don't know about 4 visits, that's a lot. And I said, just tell him that you will do it, those extra 2. He was willing to do 2, so okay, well, you'll just be at work those other 2. It's 4 hours. So they control that. But I will say that the majority of birth parents now want some form of openness. But to a birth mother, that could just mean letters with pictures. At Bethany, you send an update, like your monthly appointment, okay, weighs 8 pounds, is now 2 ounces, formula, I don't know, all that data. And then development, like, oh, she smiles all the time and she loves to kick in the bathtub. Okay, you send something like that and some pictures every month, the first year. You send them to Bethany, and this is pretty common. And then Bethany either sends them or doesn't, depending on what the birth parents want. So what I counsel waiting families like Kim, this woman who's in the middle of it right now, is start really slowly and conservatively, but you're not making a decision that's going to affect the next 50 years, because relationships change. Just like your high school buddies, you may never talk to them now. Okay, so it can be the same with a birth parent, but you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So you don't. But in my case, I just went for broke, and I thought, this is much bigger than I am. And I also liked the birth mother and trusted her, and we just kind of clicked. But that openness can be in any form. Most of the time, it's just in the mail. It's just communication in the mail. She may never have her phone number. Carrie's never been to my house. We usually just text. And we probably see each other, and we're on the way open end, okay? We probably see each other 3 or 4 times in person a year. It's mostly her attachment is to me, not Scotty. Kind of as a mentor and a friend. So if it scares them, they just need to read about it. Read some different stories. It can be bad. There's a great online magazine, or I don't know what you call it. It's a magazine, but they also have a whole community called Adopted Family Circle. And there's an open adoption group in there, and you can join and just hear what they're dealing with. So I might post in there, okay, Christmas is coming up. What should I buy a birth mother? Like, what's appropriate? There are all these questions. Adoptive parents have so much to think about. And it is long term and it's permanent. So you do need to think about that. If it makes her nervous, she shouldn't do open. She can still do closed or semi-open. And once you're the mother, just like we all are with our children, we call the shots. So I've had to have some conversations with Carrie, because she's 25 and she falls in love really easily. She's quite lovable, and she's like, I want you to meet my new boyfriend. And so I met one, and then I thought, no, we're not doing this. When she gets married, we'll meet the boy. Okay, but I said, and I had to tell her that. I said, that's a lot of boys. When you're 25 and single, you're having fun. Let's just hold off on introducing Scotty to any guys until it's serious. Okay, so she calls the shots. And that's what my social worker, he said, you call the shots. Because I've called him a couple of times, like, panic. Well, I don't have it all figured out. And I make mistakes, and I've had to have difficult conversations. And adoptive parents typically are tenacious, the women. They have to be. It takes some intestinal fortitude just to survive the paperwork. It does. Just the process itself. And one of the quotes that this website that I write for sometimes, Adoptimist, they actually match up families. But he asked me for a quote, and I said, everything about adoption is hard except loving the child. And it has 1,700 likes on Facebook because people are like, yes, absolutely. The child is just the child. And most of that book, none of that book's about Scotty. It's all about the women. It's all about us. I hope I helped. Did that help?
I had a question.
Yeah.
The Bethany place too, is that the same as like the whole international? And I mean, it's all adoption things. Do each adoption place have their own criteria? Or, I mean, I have 4 kids already, but from the time from the time I was a kid, I knew that I probably would want to adopt eventually. I thought if I don't have kids, I'll have. But my husband is kind of, agrees with that as well, except for, I'm in school, I have a 2-year-old, and then I have the older 3, and I would an older child adoption. But I just don't know, when is the best time? Should I, finish school, or should I incorporate it into life just like my other kids? And
well, what if you got pregnant? You'd be in school.
Well,
I'd say do it when you feel like doing it.
It's been on my heart a lot, and then we came to this church, and they have a big adoption thing here too, and I'm like, okay, Lord, and even this morning I was thinking about that. When I came here, I'm like, okay, it's about adoption today. This is really freaking me out a little bit,
Just take steps. Just start reading. Look at different agencies. This office of Bethany in Knoxville, I can't say enough good things. Every Bethany's office is not the same. They don't run things the same way, and they've got some not so great. I mean, you could go to an agency, and any agency, and have a bad experience, no matter what the title of that agency is. But this particular office is remarkably good. They're so compassionate. And I dedicated the book to Mark, the social worker.
And I also heard that in Tennessee that you have to foster first before you can adopt, unless you do an international adoption. That's not true.
You can do anything.
Okay, so that's why I was surprised that you
But the best thing to do would be to go to an information meeting at an agency like Harmony.
Yeah, they have one here, but I was out of town that weekend and I hated that.
Or the one that you guys do. You have like a forum, right, where people talk from different agencies. I think Bethany might have been part of that.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, so that would be great. Bethany, the Knoxville office of Bethany has an information meeting once a month. And that he goes through, or Terry Bowles, the director, or one of the pregnancy counselors, they talk about embryo adoption, which is crazy to me, where you can put, I mean, that's awesome. And that's something like IVF patients are the ones who actually give those embryos, so it's really neat. They talk about the different countries and what's going on in those countries. And then they talk about, obviously, domestic infant adoption, but they also do adoption of older children when they come. But Bethany, Knoxville particularly, they really counsel crisis pregnancy, and their goal is to keep the birth mother from aborting. I mean, that's their #1 goal. The second is to make sure the baby arrives and both are healthy. And then really the adoptive parents, even though it's an adoption agency, it's really a social work agency, that we're a resource. Only about 1 out of every 4 of those birth mothers place. Not because they back out, but because they choose to parent initially. And Bethany just counsels them, helps them through that, and gets them, taken care of and set up, and they just help them. So it's not, and then there's Dawn Kopic in Knoxville. Might be a good one to talk. She's an adoption attorney. So you can go privately.
Okay.
And you can talk to Harmony. They do all different kinds.
I also saw, this is not really, well, it's kind of adoption, but the thing that they had over here with the babies where they can drop them off until they're 3, what happens to those?
They go to
adoption agents?
They go to state custody or DHS, or child services.
Department of Human Services.
Yeah. And then they have to go through protocol to see if there are any relatives and all that kind of thing. And then a lot of times they probably do get adopted out. Who knows? They just go
And
into
then the kids that were taken out, this is 120 foster children that are eligible for adoption. Where are they? All over the place in all adoption agencies? And I mean,
well, the foster children, that's state run.
Yeah, but the older child adoption, and then it has about the intercountry.
Bethany, I get emails from Bethany that say this child is available if you know someone, and a lot of times they're special needs. Or
I'm a
things
foster
like that.
parent. Can I answer?
Yes, please. I don't know. Thank you.
Harmony does handle some children who are in foster care. And there are agencies, Harmony does, Helen Ross McNabb do, there are agencies who handle older children who are in foster care, as well as DCS, like just the state agency. So there are a few different
So
agencies.
see, if I didn't do inter-country, international, I would like to take kids that have had a family, but they've been mistreated, to try to give them,
And so there's no harm in talking to a social worker at DCS. There's no harm in talking to Harmony. They're great.
Just go by and get information and see what
Yeah.
I can do and just
And
research
while
it.
even if you think school's not the time for me, it takes a long time, no
Yeah.
matter what process you do. And you're gonna have to write an autobiography, and you're gonna, there's a lot to do, so.
Wow.
Yeah, you
No
go through
trouble
the
getting
same,
information
you
to
go
get
through the home
started.
study process.
Home study? What is that, what exactly?
Well, they just interview you and
Look at your
determine
home.
that you're a fit parent, a safe home. They look at your house and all that
And
stuff.
also, like, how much?
It's just time consuming. It's not scary, but it's
Like, do the kids have to have a certain room that's like their own space, or as long as they're under a certain age, or, I mean, I don't know how that like really works.
I think it would
They
depend
have
on
to
the
have
age.
a bed. And I think they do have some qualifications about set gender.
Yeah, like under
But-
certain ages or something.
Yeah.
We have I don't know, I'm just,
I
like,
would
I know
say
what you do, but I
all-
feel like, when do I do this, when's the right time, and if I keep waiting until it's the right time, then it's never gonna be the right time,
Well, you could start the process and then just let the timing work out on its own.
So I was thinking, if
And
God
just
wants it to happen,
have
it'll
faith that it
happen
will.
when he wants, and just to start it, and,
Well, yeah, if you go to an international, it can take years.
just makes me
Or even
nervous
a
too,
foster.
to be a parent, like, how do you parent your kids, and then you have a couple other kids, and, you don't know the backgrounds, and mixing everybody in, and my kids are a little crazy already, and,
I think working with an agency is ideal because they help you with all that.
The what?
An agency.
Just going,
If you go through somebody who can counsel you on all those things, it's
Did you guys adopt after fostering any kids?
Yeah.
Okay, and so but you still foster and then, or,
Well, okay. We adopted our daughter, and then I gave birth to a son,
oh, wow.
and then we've just decided to reopen, so we just reopened our home.
Okay.
Are
so-
waiting for placement.
And then if they have a kid that needs a home, then they just contact you?
They call us.
Okay.
And some foster to adopt and some foster not to adopt. What was your question?
How did you make sure that your older child didn't really feel inadequate? Like, did you hide your infertility from him or the adoption process? I just have a friend and she's worried that her stepchildren kind of feel like that they are not enough for her.
Gosh, that's why you need a social worker like I had, because that's a question that I would have asked. I did ask him. So Houston was 6 when we started the adoption process. I mean, if you already had a child and then you decided to become pregnant, did you talk to your other child about it? How many of you consult a 5-year-old? So it's kind of funny, but because it's a daunting process, it can take a toll on the family. So I did ask that question because I had relatives say, "Are you sure you want to put Houston through all that?" And I said, "Well, yes. I want him to have a sibling." And Carrie made him a brother. I couldn't. And so I asked Mark, our social worker, and he said, "You just tell him what you think he can handle that's age appropriate. Mommy's trying to get another baby." So when we turned in our paperwork, and we said, I say baby all the time because ours was a baby, but we said up to 2 years old, I think is what we put because of Houston's age. Like that was a good gap for them where there weren't a lot of issues and whatever. But so I said, we turned in our paperwork, and I took him with me, and just little things like that are age appropriate. And I said, it may take, whatever. So we took the first formal application, and he says, this is one of my favorite parts of our story. Mark said, "Oh, right, Houston, thank you so much. We'll start this, and then you go work on the rest of the stack, Jody." And so Houston saw him and give him the papers and a check. And he said, "So what do we do? Just come back in 2 weeks and get our baby?" And Mark said, "Oh no, you could. Once you're approved, you could. This is just how." And he said, "But then, Houston, it can take 2 years. It could take a long time. You just concentrate on basketball." and we'll work this out, like real, just age appropriate. And so I included him, like I let him pick out a bathtub, so he was part of it. And they're really close. They're really, really close. I've got some pictures y'all can look at. Just passing around. But, and also I brought our profile book that we filled out that we did for Bethany. And, ours was real simple. I write a lot of funny stuff about my experience with FedEx, but it has, look at this beautiful couple. Please. And so that's how old he was when we started the process. So you can see his age there. And then I made mine really simple, but I made it where you could lay it flat and where she could turn the pages. And so there's a dear birth parent letter from each of us, and I put Jeff's first. And then the little background thing that the agency typed up about us. And then pictures. And then this is neat. This is Jeff's picture the day that he came home, the day he was adopted. Look at the difference. You can see the pantyhose. And Mr. Dyer has on a business suit. When we met Scotty, or when we brought Scotty home from the hospital, Jeff had on a coaching outfit because he had been in a baseball tournament. So then we just have pictures on each of us, and just real laid back, simple. I didn't want it to be too fussy, too fancy, because I'm not. So I think it reflects. Notice though that the sun is shining in every photo, and everybody's happy all the time because aren't we? So I'll just let you guys pass that around. It's been a while since we did it. So I would say I'll just repeat what social workers told me was tell them what's age appropriate, what they can handle, but absolutely involve them. They don't have to know the nitty gritty just like they don't about everything.
When they started the process, and she was paper pregnant for 10 months. And they prayed for that baby, and they prayed for that mama.
Yeah.
Before they ever knew who it would be. And they went through Bethany too when it was semi-open. And
Yeah.
so, but then after Kanan was born, the mom, even though it was semi-open in that she got to see pictures and choose them, initially she didn't want to meet them, but then after he was born, she wanted to meet my sister and her husband, and she thanked them for taking care of the baby better than she ever will be able to. But to protect my niece, they did not bring her to that meeting.
Right.
Just kind of have to use your judgment and protect your child from any future heartache or whatever.
And I was really blunt about that.
Very much involved, just like when if you're expecting another baby.
Yeah.
You talk about that baby, and you don't know for sure when it's gonna, you have that timeline, but but that's not always certain either.
Right.
So.
Well, and with Carrie, I took a big leap with Houston, but we didn't involve Houston as far as knowing about a specific baby. We didn't tell him about Scotty until Scotty was 2 weeks out. The only people who knew we were about to get the baby until then were my mother, my friend Toby, and another birth mother, ironically. And so nobody knew. My husband said, you'll wear everybody you know out if you tell them everything immediately, because lots of things can go wrong, and then you're having to justify every decision you make and validate and explain and wear yourself down. And so we just kind of spared them. But 2 weeks before, Carrie texted me and said, have you told Houston yet? And I said, no. And I'm nervous because it's 50-50, Carrie. And I had birthed a child and knew what that was like, and she didn't. And so I really understood. I would have understood as a mother if she had changed her mind. And I would not be mad at her. I would have been heartbroken, but I would have understood. So I said, it could all change. And so I'm just really nervous about that. And she said, well, I really want to meet Houston. So this was like the first week of May. She said, I really want to meet him. And she said, I really want you to tell him. I really, and just something, I just thought, let her tell him. So I don't know what compelled me to do this, because what a loss for me to be able to tell Houston, who was so engaged in the process and so excited about potentially having, a sibling. Something compelled me to let her tell him, and it was God, I guess, because what mother would give that up? And so I texted. She had to teach me to text. I didn't know how to text. I still do it like this. And I said, why don't you tell him? And gulp. She said, what? Really? you would let me do that? And I said, absolutely, you're the one making my brother, not me. And so we met at Baskin Robbins, and she told him, and it was freaky, crazy, and it was neat, but I wasn't in the, I mean, I left, I went outside, and I just watched, and he was just, it was something. I write about that in pretty good detail in the book. But I told her, as we waited for her mango smoothie and his Superman shirt in line, I'm like, here I am in Baskin Robbins on Merchant Road. I mean, what am I doing? I mean, it was an out-of-body experience. I said, you know that once you tell him that you cannot go back as far as he's concerned. I mean, this is big for me that you do this for my child. She said, it's okay. She was nervous. But she did great. Most people, you just do what they can handle. Any other questions? Yes.
About how much did it cost you to adopt?
I would say all in all, if you count like the doctor's appointments where we all had to get physicals and all the mopping I did, extra mopping. I don't think I only mopped. I wrote the book, I only mopped for in-laws and social workers. Fingerprints and all those things. And the fees at Bethany, which have gone up a little bit, but they prorate them here, not at every office, but here they do, on your income and stuff like that. I think we probably spent about $15,000, so it wasn't as bad as what people think. It can be more, and that all depends on the situation and the agency you choose. This Bethany office doesn't do pass-through costs, but many do. So like if the birth mother says, I have to quit work and go on bed rest, I can't pay my rent, she can, whatever's reasonable and actual, they can ask for. It's a legal
They
thing.
asked for from you?
From the agency or from whatever. I mean, anybody can say no. Okay, but with Bethany, one thing I liked about this office was, again, we're just regular income people. So we didn't have this exorbitant, I mean, we're still paying. We got a line of credit for Scotty. So, good old home equity lines of credit, they can do so many things. So we had a limited amount of money. And so they were great because based on our income, they prorated it. And so we qualified, and then they subsidized the rest through fundraising and things like that.
I'm a little confused.
But not all agencies are different, all attorneys do it differently.
Why do they, I don't know a lot about this stuff, but why will they pay people, and we've considered ourselves, I'm not criticizing anybody, but why would they pay people to foster children, but then you have to pay so much money to adopt?
Well, you're not really, I mean, it's definitely a non-profit industry. There's legal work and counseling. Like the money I spent went to take care of Carrie, mostly probably her counseling and ours, like social workers, what they charge to counsel, and the paperwork and the legal filing fees.
But isn't that like you have to do that with foster care too, don't you?
Well, I would say, that's a whole different ballgame. You're just coming from a whole different.
Foster care, the state pays for it.
Yeah.
If-
And
well,
some
but
people
then
do
you
go
can
the foster
still
route
get
because of
If you
that.
want a baby, then
Yeah. And it's harder to get a newborn if you want a newborn. Yeah. It's just as complex as the world is complex.
I can tell you, when I fostered my sister, what money you get, it's really just enough to take care of the child, like to buy
the
them
basic
clothes
needs.
and food.
Yeah, it's,
You're
Yeah.
you're not making money.
I think it's
I knew
more
that.
I would look at it more as an incentive from the government to help place the children, and they cover some of the costs, but it just takes the edge off because children are really expensive. Yeah. But I think that I once read that the average adoption process, a domestic infant, costs around $25,000 or $27,000. So they're subsidized. Well, I mean, just look at the insurance from giving birth. Like sometimes they're paying for all that because these girls may not be insured, or they may be. They're all different ages. I mean, they're all different ages. The average age of a birth mother when we adopted Scotty was about 26. They're older than people think, and it's just so much. It's just complicated and fascinating. Well, I've probably talked a long time. Teachers love to tell stories. So, any last question? All right, thank you all. I really appreciate you. Good audience.